Let me begin by saying that although we lost Sir Stirling and we're still missing him so much, it's still a bit of a shock, really, to know that he's gone. But 2 days after he passed away, we also lost his first wife, Katie Molson, as she was when Stirling married her in 1957, one of the Molson brewery family from Canada. It was a quick romance, and Stirling married her in 57, and they built an amazing house together, actually, in Nassau, which Stirling finished just prior to or during the Nassau Speed Weeks of that period. I mentioned last week that one of my favorite books was behind the scenes of, I said it was international motor racing. In fact, it's called Behind the Scenes of Motor Racing, Ken Gregory. Ken was very much Stirling's manager, but also helped a lot of other drivers, particularly Peter Collins, and he was instrumental in the formation of BRP, British Racing Partnership, the team which Stirling's father played a role in as well. But just going back to 1957, his chapter on 1957 is called 1957, Wonderful Year. And he says, after Caracas, where Stirling was racing a sports car, Stirling went to Nassau there to meet Katie, who had flown out from England. They hoped to be able to move into their new house on Camperdown Heights, but building was slower than anticipated, and this was not possible. So they knuckled down and joined in the work. Stirling, guess what? Digging holes, tiling roofs, making cupboards, erecting a bar, and all sorts of other things. And I suspect thoroughly enjoying himself, and I suspect he would have been as well, because that's exactly how he spent many of his post-career years, doing all that sort of stuff. The Stirling that I first met when I came over from Australia in the early 70s had a Vespa scooter. He would ride around London thinking that anybody that didn't ride a scooter was a twat. I think he called them something like that. And well, let's call him a twit. And he would be going from low discount do-it-yourself store to another one, buying bits here, buying bits there. He had a string of properties that he let out. He was the landlord of all these properties, but he would not allow anybody to manage them. He had to do everything himself, whether it was fixing a leaking pipe, whether it was electrical problem down here on the other side of London, he would go and do it himself. And I remember him saying, it's the only way, old boy, when you're not racing, you have lots of apartments, lots of flats, lots of property, London property, and but don't employ anybody, don't spend any money on anything, just do it all yourself, That was a big lesson for me. It was in the mid-70s, actually. I remember Stirling, we all know that his house, I hope you all do, that his house in Mayfair was full of every gadget you could possibly imagine. He had a shaft coming up from the kitchen to the bedroom so that the food would arrive at the front of the bed. He could turn on the bath from the bed. He could control the temperature of the water, all these things, just brilliant. And I remember when video recorders came along, he got one of the first big Philips video recorders, and he was showing it to me. It must have been about 74, I guess, 75. And he was showing it to me how, not proud, he was just completely staggered at how good it was, and that finally he could record things and didn't have to sit around waiting for them to come on and watch them. And I was very impressed, as you would be. And the first time I actually made any money at all, I was very lucky to win a competition. And I won enough money, it was 750 quid actually, it's quite a lot of time and money at the time, to buy one of these massive Philips video recorders. And so I bought one, and my TV at the time was only a tiny little black and white TV, tiny one. So I had a 750 quid video recorder with it. So I remember saying to Stirling, before I connected, I said, Stirling, I forgot to ask, does the video recorder work on a black and white television as well as it works on your colour TV, do you think? And he said, only a Pratt would have a black and white TV. I've never forgotten that. Yeah, I was a Pratt then, of course. Anyway, that was classic Stirl. And let's just have a quick look, actually, at Katie, just to remember Katie Moss and those times. And I got to say, before we just run this little piece, Suzy, who's just been wonderful over the last, I don't know how long, of Stirling's life, but looking after Stirling right to the end. She's been an amazing partner for Stirling. But towards, in the autumn of their lives, Katie and Suzy's still with us, obviously, that Suzy and Stirling went to Nassau, as they did on several occasions, where David McLaughlin, a very good friend of mine, was running and staging the revival, the Speed Week revival in the Bahamas. So Stirling and Suzy went over there, and Katie had remained there and was living there at the time, and David reintroduced them, and they became very good friends. And so it was it was a wonderful thing, actually, that and a lot of what should I say, dignity, I think, from Suzy, that she was such good friends with Katie Moss as well. So this little snippet here just shows some pictures of Katie with Suzy. But let's roll that now, and it starts with the marriage of Katie and Stirling in '57 in Mayfair in London. All Peter Collins was there, Mike Hawthorne. It was an amazing event. Look at the cars around the cake. I've got one of those D-types, actually. Brilliant. There's Katie. It was a big deal at the time. And there they are in the Bahamas in later years. Stirling, obviously, and there's Suzy on the left in the black, and there's Katie Molson, who passed away. And there's the house they built in Camperdown Heights. And there's Stirling on the left. Looks like he's with Pat there, his sister, I would say. I don't think that's Katie, the other girl. They're just putting a boat down. There's NSU Prince in the background. And that is a picture that David McLaughlin sent at that time. Stirling signing the steering wheel of a young Carter who was out there called Ollie Caldwell, who's racing today. Really quick young English driver. What an amazing thing. I bet he's really looking after that steering wheel, that signed steering wheel. So big thanks to Anna Wassitsch for those photographs who took them. First time they've ever been published, and wonderful to see there to see how they got on so well. And Katie was, apparently she was just brilliant. I never got to know her, I never even met her, but she was one of the real stalwarts of Nassau. And equally, she went back to Canada in the last few years of her life. But she passed away 2 days after Stirling. They say, friends who knew her, of a broken heart.